Good morning, everyone. My name is Donna Ennis, and I am the Director of Diversity Engagement and Program Development for the Georgia Tech Enterprise Innovation Institute, and I lead our Georgia MBDA Business Center and other MBDA programs. Welcome to our first webinar on navigating and adjusting to the new normal, as we call it now, which you'll hear about a lot later. We want to thank all of our participants and our co-hosts today for helping us to bring some really valuable information to you about what's going on with the SBA and the loan programs. Before we get started, I'd like to thank our co-hosts. I'd like to start with thanking Veronica Maldonado and her team over at the Georgia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Elizabeth Wilson and her team at the Georgia Micro Enterprise Network, Stacy Key and her group at the Georgia Minority Supplier Development Council, and Diane Matthews, our longtime partner and co-host with the South Fulton Chamber of Commerce. Thank you so much for co-hosting this program with us today. Just to give you real quickly what we're going to cover, of course, I acknowledge and welcome you all to this program. Jennifer Passy, our Senior Project Director, will give us some information about this new program that we're launching today. We'll hear from Jamarcus King, Chief Operating Officer at J&F Alliance Group, who is a success story for the SBA EIDL loan, which Terry Dennison will be talking about. And of course, we have our guest presenter today, Terry Dennison, Georgia District Director with the U.S. Small Business Administration. Please put your questions in the Q&A panel box, I should say, and we'll pick those questions up and answer them at the end of the program. Do not put your questions in chat. We won't be able to retrieve them. So we again ask you to put your questions in the Q&A. So let's get started. Again, I welcome you to our Navigating and Adjusting to the New Normal webinar hosted by the Georgia MBDA, or Minority Business Development Agency Business Center. For those of you who don't know what the Georgia MBDA Business Center are, we are part of a national network of centers that are funded by the U.S. Department of Commerce Minority Business Development Agency. As you can see here, our mission basically is to focus on helping to grow and strengthen minority-owned businesses. As I mentioned, we're part of a national network. The MBDA is the only federal agency established in the late 60s to focus strictly on launching, growing, and sustaining minority-owned businesses, that is, ethnic minority-owned businesses. We have 45 centers across the country focused on businesses, manufacturing, federal procurement, as well as exporting. How do we help grow companies? We have these 4 pillars that we pretty much work in one or 2 or all 4 of these areas. Access to market and opportunities, where we help companies respond to opportunities, write proposals, edit proposals, as well as bring opportunities to you guys through our matchmaking events, as well as other networking events that we may host. Access to capital is really big. As you can see here today, that's what we're going to talk about in the next hour. It's going to be about how do you get some capital and what is SBA offering. So access to capital, helping to source capital from debt to equity is one of our big pillars, along with infrastructure and capacity. We work really closely with a lot of our organizations that, like the co-hosts that you see today, who have training programs and capacity building programs that we can direct you to, as well as help you complete and increase and improve the internal workings of your business. And finally, our 4th pillar, which is really one that we really stand proud of, is having the resources and expertise. We like to say, if we don't do it in-house, we know how to get you to the individual organization that does. Here's been our economic impact in the last 5 years. Just with our Georgia MBDA Center, we have served over 3,000 MBEs for $6.4 billion in contracts and financing, along with creating close to 6,000 jobs. So again, our mission is to grow, strengthen our MBEs, help you secure contracts and procurement, source capital, because we know businesses need capital at any phase, from startup to maturity, to expansion, to acquisition. Capital is always the name of the game. I just wanted to show this really quickly, just a laundry list of logos, because I think it's important for you to know that you've tapped into a national network. All of us, this ecosystem, from the SBA to the MBDA and all in between, we're all here to help you, our small and minority businesses, to grow. So whether we're working with Fortune 500 or 1,000 companies, the Blue Book Network, which is a construction organization that's a partner of ours, any of the chapters of the National Minority Supplier Development Council, and more, we're part of this ecosystem. And I just wanted to drill down one more time to show you that a breakdown of the university, city, state, and region, just to give you, again, a visual of how Georgia Tech, for example, is a university that has a number of programs under it that help small businesses, all the way to the region where we have our Southeast Trade Adjustment Assistance Center, Next Generation Manufacturing, the US PAC, Asian American Chamber of Commerce in the Southeast. We have our city partners and support organizations, as well as our state support organizations. This is by no means a finite list. This is just simply to show you that we're all working together every day. This is what we do every day. This is our passion to help to grow and strengthen our companies. Here's my team that works with us. I won't go through the entire list of names, but just suffice to say that we're happy to serve you. We welcome you. Feel free to call or reach out to anybody on the team. And we will, as I said before, if we can't help you, our role is to get you to the individual or organization that can. And so with that, I am going to turn it over to Jennifer Passy, who's going to talk a little bit about the program and introduce you to our guest. Thank you. You're on mute, Jennifer.
Thank you, Donna, and good morning, everyone. So as Donna mentioned, today's SBA EIDL webinar is presented by our Georgia MBDA Business Center under the Navigating and Adjusting to a New Normal, NON program, as we call it. NON is funded by the U.S. Department of Commerce, Minority Business Development Agency's Coronavirus Response and Relief Award. And our mission is to help as many MBAs as we can to access capital, increase profitability, and scale their businesses by connecting them with innovative opportunities that will help them grow and strengthen their businesses during this pandemic. We've had an opportunity to work with many MBEs over the past couple of years. And as Donna mentioned, we are going to invite you to hear from Jamarcus King with J&F Alliance Group. Jamarcus is one of our success stories with the SBA EIDL program and also the SBA's PPP program that was launched a year or so ago. So with that being said, I'd like to again thank our partners that are with us here today, which includes the Georgia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the Georgia Micro Enterprise Network, Georgia Minority Supplier Diversity Council, Development Council, my apologies, and the South Fulton Chamber of Commerce. And with that, we'll turn it over to Jamarcus King with J&F Alliance Group.
Hello, good morning, everybody. Thank y'all for having me, Donna, and the team there at Georgia Tech. It's good seeing y'all again, and I love working with everyone over there. Everyone there was dedicated and committed to the mission, and I've seen it for the last few years. I tell a lot of people about it, and people that I have referred to you all have the same testimony. So thank you all for what you do. It's very much needed, and I encourage you to keep on going. And if there's anything you already know that I can do to support, I will. But I would like to say that I am a successful EIDL retainer of the EIDL loan. I was able to do so through support of Georgia Tech, the MBDA Senator, and Jennifer Paisley. I can tell you the very first time that we submitted, we got denied. And I called up the company, the SBA, the 1-800 number that they provide, and I was able to find out that we were denied because we filled out the form incompletely. So once I was able to understand that, we sat down, we were able to get the form completed the correct way, resubmitted, and guess what? We were approved for the EIDL loan for $500,000. Now, what I would tell you is one of the main reasons that we were able to obtain approval is because we had our financials ready. A lot of people say, well, I can't afford a CPA. Well, I'm here to tell you, you can't afford not to have a CPA, because if it wasn't for our CPA and our bookkeeper who reconciles our books every month, and because of that, we were able to produce financials that make sense. So when we submitted our application with the required financial documents that are required, we were able to get approved. I've spoken to friends, some friends who they do more revenue than our company, and they were denied. And a lot of times, through my conversations with them, the denial was because their financials were not up to par. So what I've been doing is communicating that to everyone that I know, everyone that I come across, is to make sure you have your financials in order. Last year, I had a friend that through the PPP, they were denied. And I talked to them. I said, man, look, I'm gonna introduce you to my CPA. I got a good bookkeeper that I can recommend to you. Get your financials in order. And guess what? When it came time for the second draw, when they approved the second PPP loan, they submitted and they got approved. So one of the things that I want to bring home to you today is making sure that your financials are up to par. I realized in our community, a lot of people were getting denied specifically for that reason. So we've started a little community group here locally. I work with some friends of mine and some businesses. We came together and we've been hosting sessions here locally within our community with different people and inviting people from the SBA, inviting other successful business owners out, inviting CPAs, bookkeepers to sit down with these minority companies and to let them know, hey, in order to be successful in obtaining any lending, whether it's the SBA through the EIDL, whether it's a small business loan through your bank or whatever banking relationship you have, it's very important to have those financials in place. What I can tell you is receiving the PPP loan was very vital to our business. It allowed us to keep our doors open. And I can tell you that receiving the EIDL loan has set our business up for success and growth. Since we obtained our EIDL loan, we've been able to hire 2 more employees. We've been able to do some strategic marketing that has allowed us to obtain new contracts. So the program works. If you are having troubles or if you have any doubts about the program, I'm here to tell you it works. I've worked with some of my business owners that I work with. I've seen it work for them. Yes, it's not easy. Yes, we have struggles. Like I just said, I was even denied the first time we submitted. But don't let that stop you. Continue to do what you have to do to get your financials in order. Call someone, call the MBDA Center, call the Georgia Tech Center there. They have professionals there that can assist you in that process, that know what they're doing. So I would say don't give up, stay encouraged, and communicate. Don't be afraid to tell somebody your situation. Don't be afraid to speak up and say, hey, my financials are horrible. Because that's the only way you're going to be able to get help and get someone who knows what they're doing to help you get to that next level. I can also tell you that through having financials that are in order, we've been able to organize our company better, structure ourselves better. It's just been a wonderful thing that we've been able to be approved for these loans. And hold on one second. About that, I was interrupted. But I was saying that it's definitely been a blessing for our company that we've been approved for the EIDL loans. Also, through the EIDL loan process, we've been able to structure ourselves a lot better. We've been able to organize our back end a lot better. And because of that, I feel like our company is going to be even stronger coming out of this pandemic. So I would stay encouraged, and I'm open to any questions that anyone has for me about the process, what we had to go through, and things like that. Jennifer?
Thank you, Jamarcus. Thank you for that wonderful testimony. It was a pleasure to work with you and your business over the past 6 months to get you funded. So glad
Yes.
to know that you're using it to further your business operations. Thank you.
Yeah.
So
And I would tell you too that when you get approved for the EIDL, definitely make sure you read through the contract, because they give you guidelines on how the funding is supposed to be utilized. So we definitely follow all of the requirements when it comes to that as well.
yes, thank you. And with that being said, we'll move next to our presenter for today, Terry Dennison, Georgia District Director with the U.S. Small Business Administration. Terry, so glad to have you again.
Oh, so glad to be here. I know that assistance, to address the whole COVID-19 situation for businesses is on everyone's mind. Our phones, our emails that we're receiving definitely makes that very clear. I believe I was sharing with Jennifer. I actually had somebody track me down on Facebook Messenger last week, trying to get some answers. So I hope that with the few moments that we have today, I can answer some of those questions, and then more importantly, point you where you can obtain more specific guidance and assistance in accessing these funds. As far as COVID-19 relief, really the COVID-19 Economic Injury Disaster Loan, or EIDL program, is the last program standing. We've gone through the Paycheck Protection Program, or PPP, that has sunsetted. And I know a lot of businesses were able to take advantage of that. The Restaurant Revitalization Fund went pretty quickly as far as the funds there. So currently there are no funds available under that program to assist restaurants and other eateries related businesses. We had SVOG, the Sugar Venues Operators Grant, which that first round has occurred in terms of funding. And now there's some supplementals going out to entities that had already received funds. So really, as far as just general availability, COVID-19 EIDL is it. So with that, I'm going to go through these slides. It's kind of a reminder of how the program works, but also to talk about some of the more recent changes that have occurred with the program. And then I want to end with kind of hitting on what we've seen as some of the top questions or challenges that applicants have been running into, and how best to address them, or if nothing else, shed a little more light on how things are working from the SBA perspective that maybe can guide you in what your next steps should be. So with that, basically the first slide here outlines the program. One thing to keep in mind, and we call it COVID-19 EIDL because the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program has always existed, or existed, really since back to the early 60s, maybe even late 50s, right after SBA was created. And it's usually offered in the context of declared disasters like natural disasters, which tend to be very local or maybe regional in focus. This is really the first time that this program has been used for a nationally declared disaster that covers all 50 states and all the U.S. territories. So a lot of potential applicants compared to what we normally would have with the regular EIDL program. When you think about the number of small businesses across the United States and its territories. But basically, the program is a loan. It's not a grant. It's not forgivable like the PPP program loan. So definitely keep that in mind. But it is a 30-year term. And the interest rate for for-profit businesses is 3.75%. If you are nonprofits, actually nonprofits are eligible, and the interest rate is 2.75%. We have a 2-year deferment, which is a change because over the course of this COVID-19 relief version of EIDL, you've had 12-month deferment, then you had like an 18-month deferment and 24-month deferment. So now with the most recent change, everybody gets a 24-month deferment, and SBA will be making those changes automatically. In terms of the repayment, you have 30 years, of course, once again, with 2-year deferment. So the idea is to really give you every opportunity to get back and get your business back on track before you have to start paying the loan back. The good news is that there's no prepayment penalty. So as you get years down the road and hopefully things get better, then you can accelerate that payment or even pay off the loan completely without a pre-penalty fee of some type. Okay. We've really kind of increased the flexibility, and I'll be going into that a little bit more, that the funds or the proceeds from this program can be used for just general operating expenses, working capital, and now can actually be used to pay business debt. That has not been the case up to this point with the COVID EIDL, and generally is not the case with the regular EIDL program. This has always been a more flexible option than, say, the Paycheck Protection Program, because if you tried to apply for that or had heard about it, you know, there were certain requirements in terms of which percentage of the proceeds had to be used for payroll, and then you had a very limited scope on the other types of expenses that could be used. EIDL has always been much more flexible in that regard. And the good news is this is a program that you can access directly through the SBA. It's really the only direct lending that we do in the disaster assistance arena. You know, with PPP and with our general loan programs, you have to go through a participating commercial lender, and then SBA guarantees it on the back end. With COVID EIDL, it is directly obtained through the SBA, more specifically through our Office of Disaster Assistance. So these are some of the policy changes that became effective as of September 8th, a few weeks ago. You know, we've been incrementally, yeah, close enough, I guess, incrementally increasing the maximum under COVID EIDL. First it was 150, then it was up to 500, and now it is up to 2 million. This matches the maximum that's allowed under statute for the EIDL program, which is $2 million. And we will begin doing approvals rather on applications greater than 500,000 starting October 8th. Some of the other changes that came on September 8th are actually enacted now, and regardless of your loan amount would be applicable. One of the things that was done that hopefully will be a great help to a lot of small businesses is being able to use the proceeds from the COVID EIDL to pay, and in some cases prepaid, commercial debt. Or regular scheduled debt payments in the case of federal debt. So like, for example, an SBA-backed loan, you cannot prepay because federal law prohibits that, but you can pay from the EIDL proceeds your monthly installment on that SBA-backed debt as it comes due. If it's not SBA related, you can actually use the proceeds to prepay that commercial debt obligation. I already mentioned that now there's 24 months deferment for all EIDL, regardless of what deferment rules were in place at the time that you received the loan. So now you have that there. Affiliation requirements, basically, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on that because it really only comes into play if you are pretty close to exceeding SBA's size standards, which essentially determines whether you are a small business and therefore eligible for our program, or you're too large to take advantage of our programs. There were some adjustments made based on industries that maybe are structured a little different to try and make those affiliation rules easier and more inclusive. I'll just touch on those a little bit because, like I said, unless you're really close to the edge, 99.8% of small businesses probably aren't in that position. And then related to that, there's a $10 million limit. And that's once again, if you have multiple locations, there's some rules on what the size for each location is, and you can't have more than 20 locations total. Okay, so this chart here just really kind of looks at, depending on the loan amount, what is applicable as far as changes. For everybody, once again, everybody now has a 24-month deferment before they have to start repaying the loan. Now, please keep in mind that even though the payments are deferred for 24 months, the interest will be accruing at that during that period of time, because I know that's a question we often get. In terms of loans that are under or between 1,000 and 25,000, the minimum credit score is 570, which is lower than the usual credit score for the EIDL program. You don't have to have collateral or personal guarantee. If you are between 25,000 and 500,000, then you still have the 570 credit score minimum. You will have to put up any available collateral, and the key is available collateral, and that is secured with a UCC filing. One of the things that the Office of Disaster Assistance really is insistent on is that they're looking just at any available business collateral. They're not going to ask for personal property for collateral on these disaster-related loans. And then a personal guarantee if the loan is over $200,000. Basically, the personal guarantee is that you're basically saying you are taking responsibility for the repayment of that loan, even if something subsequently happens to the business or the business arrangement. You are obligating yourself to repay that loan or work through repayment. And then for the loans that are going to be over 500,000 up to the maximum of 2 million, credit scores goes up a little bit. For the maximum, it is the standard 625 minimum credit score. And of course, you'd have to have a UCC filing for any business-related real estate that you may have. Of course, the first question is, well, what if I don't have business real estate? I don't own the building or the location where I am. That doesn't automatically mean it's a decline. It's just that if such collateral exists, SBA will request and require a lien against that business real estate property. And then once again, a personal guarantee would be applicable. And then you see all of the uses now that the proceeds from the COVID EIDL could be used for, including the debt coverage, which I mentioned earlier. Okay, so I'm not going to necessarily go into this because once again, it has to do with the size issues and affiliation in terms of how we look at whether or not you are small. They borrowed some of the definitions used for some of the other other COVID-related programs like the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, where there was some simplifications of what constituted an affiliation of businesses, and therefore they would be looked at as one entity in determining the size of that business. If you have specific questions, we could try and discuss them. But in looking at this, you probably will think doesn't necessarily apply. This PowerPoint is also on the SBA website, which I will share with you at the end. So it's there for your reference as well. And this particular change, once again, is related to affiliation and size determinations. They made some modifications for businesses that, one, in industries where maybe they were a little more impacted by the pandemic, maybe a lot of personal interaction, on-site location type work, etc. And basically, they're just saying that if you have more than one location, you have to have 500 or fewer employees at each location, and you can't have more than 20 locations to still be considered small in these industry categories. Now, this talks a little bit about what happens for loan requests that are over 500,000, and that can be in a couple ways. Given that we are towards the end of this program and many businesses have accessed the EIDL program earlier, more than likely the form this increased funding is going to take is a modification of an existing EIDL to increase the amount. By all means, and this was going to be on my list of don'ts, but most definitely do not submit another EIDL application. That really muck up the whole process. If there's multiple applications from the same applicant, and by that I mean same tax ID number, or if you're a sole proprietor, same social security number that you may use as your tax ID number. Do not submit a separate application. That will definitely guarantee that your application process will slow down. So you would be asking for an increase in an existing EIDL that you may have. And this just kind of talks about strategies. So if somebody hadn't applied before and they wanted more quick access, they could ask for the 500,000 max current, or before September 8th, they could ask for the 500 max at that time, get that, and then ask for an increase for additional funds beyond that. If you've never had one before and need more than 500,000, then you would just submit an application, and you would be considered for the amount. One thing I do want to point out, and I was going to point out later, but it doesn't hurt to point it out at this juncture, is that the EIDL is a little different in how the loan amount is determined. Generally, you get a business loan, you've done your projections or your business plan or what have you, cost out whatever equipment you need, and come up with a loan amount you want to request based on projections, based on historicals, based on plans that you have or purchases that you're going to be making related to the business, and say, okay, based on what I've kind of researched, this is how much we need. EIDL is different in that it's really driven by a formula. So you don't come in saying, I'd like 500,000 or 750 or $1 million or 2 million. And the formula is basically, and since most businesses existed in 2019 prior to the pandemic in early 2020, the formula is the tax, you take your 2019 tax return for your business. It would be your gross receipts as stated or as you put on that tax return, subtract out cost of goods sold, that'll give you your gross margin. You multiply that by 2. And in most cases, that's going to be the formula that will give you an estimation of approximately how much you would be eligible for as a maximum EIDL amount. If you didn't start your business until right before the pandemic, say the first week in January, and kind of look at the date of the pandemic starting on January 30th, 2020, there's another formula that is used. But in most cases, your business existed in 2019, that would be the formula that you would use, or that, more importantly, SBA would use in making an offer to you as to what the maximum loan amount would be. Okay. Here, we've been working, the agency's been working really hard to streamline some of the processes. I know there've been, issues with length of time, some things being requested multiple times, and just not seeming as efficient as it could be. There have been some changes made within the agency, and I'm not going to give you, like they say, you don't want to ever know how laws are made or sausage are made. I'm not going to get into what changes have been made behind the scene, but other parts of the agency has come in to try and streamline the processes and figure out how to deliver these loans more efficiently and quickly. So based on some of the changes that they have made in the last, I would say 6 to 8 weeks, this is the scenario that they're looking at, that the smaller loans they have a goal of 3 weeks, provided all the information that's requested and needed to process have been provided. But once they have a complete application, they're looking at a goal of about 3 weeks to turn those around. That's because they're really going on the credit history of the principal of the company. Hence, that's why they look at your credit score. They're looking at the tax return information for the business, and that's pretty much it. It's going to take a little longer for those loan amounts over 500. In that sense, they're going to be looking more at this like you would a business loan. They're going to be looking at cash flow. They're going to be looking at the balance sheet of the company, and basically determining from the business operations, can this loan be repaid? So because they're taking that approach, it's going to take longer. So they're estimating about 6 weeks. And so that last line is simply that if you ask for half a million first, or they offered you $500,000, I should say. You got that. Now you want to get an increase. It's going to be a longer period of time there. And then there's all the documents that you need, the federal tax returns, the 4506T, which is basically a form that gives SBA permission to request directly from IRS your tax transcripts, more than likely for tax year 2019 or calendar year 2019. Some additional forms if you're going to be pursuing based on the offer made by Office of Disaster Assistance. If they're offering more than $500,000, there are additional forms you would have to provide. The standard resolution form is basically for non-sole proprietors. Your sole proprietor, you're an actual living, breathing person. So it's obvious that you have signed the document saying, I'm wanting to pursue this loan or to apply for this loan. If your business is a legal entity, like a partnership or a corporation or an LLC, they need a statement saying that entity, you are a duly authorized representative that can bind that entity to an obligation with an EIDL. So that's what that form is. If some of you had gotten a loan, say last year, and then I believe the center was following up, and months later, maybe in some cases over a year later, saying, I need you to sign this form. That's where that comes from. That should have been asked on the front end, but things were a little chaotic in the beginning. So now they're just making sure that as applicable, that's being requested. The schedule of liabilities is a standard form of SBAs, basically looking at what your obligations are on a monthly basis. Any real estate owned, once again, that's business real estate, and then the personal financial statement for the principal of or principals of that company. Okay, and basically, remember this website, sba.gov/EIDL. They've really tried to work to make this a more useful resource for people who are loan recipients or looking to obtain an EIDL. The FAQs, they've redone completely to try to really answer some of the troubleshooting questions that a lot of businesses have had and how to fix those issues. Those are shared in the document. Also, they provide some guidance on if you're applying online, which most people are, basically a sample of what the information looks like at a glance, so that if you want to work through it, if you want to work through it as a worksheet, which I tend to like to do before you actually start trying to input something, you can in fact take that document and play around and make sure your information and your answer to each of the questions being asked are correct before you actually start inputting. And there's a checklist as well that is helpful whether you're using the portal or if for some reason you cannot file electronically or you don't feel comfortable. There are ways to go ahead and submit your application. All I would add is that if you're going the manual paper route, it's probably going to take longer than if you use the portal, but there is an option there for that. So a few things just to wrap up before we get into questions. Let me grab notes here. I want to make sure I cover right quick. I already talked about don't do multiple applications. If you have an existing loan, you want to get additional funds, ask for a modification to that loan in which you would ask for an increase. Check the portal, since most people are using the portal. Be sure to check it frequently. That is pretty much the way SBA's Office of Disaster Assistance communicates with you regarding what the next steps are or what additional information or documents are needed. One thing, and maybe some of you've encountered this, if they ask you for something and they don't hear from you in 7 calendar days, then they may go ahead and actually close the account out or close the application out as a decline, saying that the firm was not interested or not, or failed to respond. So be sure, maybe set a timer every day at this time. I'm going to check. I think they do an email to let you know something's there, but just in case, I would just go ahead and make it a point to log in frequently so that you can get the latest communication or request. If you don't have access, you can take the documents being requested, scan them, and there is an email address, and I will go ahead and put that in the chat. It's also available on our website, but it's P as in Paul, D as in David, C, RECONS at SBA.gov. And that's the PDC is Processing and Distribution Center, or Disbursement Center. And recons is like as in reconsideration. So PDC RECONS at SBA.gov. You can submit them there. The tax transcripts. I know there's been a lot of angst around that. People being asked multiple times for it from SBA. The length of time IRS is taking to get back to SBA. People have said, well, I've gone to gotten my physical copy of my tax return with the IRS and had it stamped, being told that this was just as good, and SBA didn't accept it. Couple things there. Okay. First of all, on the 4506T, be sure that the information matches exactly the information on the tax return that it refers to. So if we're talking about 2019 tax returns, you were a sole proprietor in 2019, then the information on your 4506T has to reflect that. Even though there's been subsequent changes to how you do business in terms of your business structure, maybe you've changed addresses, what they're looking at is what was the information at the time that you filed that 2019 tax return. If they don't match, IRS is going to come back to SBA and say there's no tax return for this business. And that's where a lot of the problems began with that. So definitely be sure. If you're going to try to do the stamped tax return route, it's important how it's stamped. It has to be stamped received. I think there's a stamp that says proof of delivery only. If that's the stamp, SBA is not going to accept that. But if it does say that it was IRS stamps it as received, then that can be considered in lieu of the tax data and the transcript. Okay, be sure you print all your, it's good to have a printed copy of the information that you submit just for your record. So in case something happens with the electronics and the cloud and all that good stuff, you have a paper version, and sometimes it's easier to just have everything together in a paper version or paper form versus having to leaf through the application online. I've already talked about how the maximum amounts that SBA offers for ILA is set, the formula there. And another important thing, cost of good, basically it's, as I mentioned, your gross revenues minus your cost of goods sold. If you are a manufacturer or you produce something, then you probably will have cost of goods sold. If you are a service business, which many businesses are, you're not going to have cost of goods sold. What has happened a lot of times is that businesses have taken their expenses, their general operating expenses, put them as cost of goods sold. And because that is subtracted in the process of the calculation, that can actually reduce the amount that you appear to be eligible for, or cancel out any economic injury calculation altogether, and you'll get a letter back saying that there has been no economic injury. So be sure you don't include general expenses. Just if you truly have cost of goods sold because you make something, include that. Otherwise, that line remains blank. And the last thing, first and foremost, applications have to be approved by 2031. I mean, excuse me, 12. Yeah, it feels like it's a year with 20 months, but no, 12/31/2021. It has to be approved by that date. Getting it submitted to SBA by that date, if we are even still taking applications at that time, won't do it. It has to be approved by that date or before. And that's all that I had. We were a little longer than I had planned, but I hope that was helpful.
Terry, your presentation was outstanding, and thank you for taking a deep dive into the logistics of navigating the application process. I'm sure a lot of our attendees received great information that will help them moving forward. Lauren, do we have any questions?
Yeah, we have a lot of questions. So let me see. To start with, I have a question from Jordan Sutton stating, if I started my business in 2021, am I eligible for EIDL?
No. No, the date of the disaster is considered January 30th, 2020. You had to be in operation on that date or before.
And Terry, we have another question that our office gets a lot. Hello, I submitted my invitational targeted EIDL loan about 6 months ago. I keep receiving emails that I need to click on the submit button on my SBA portal, but I don't have that button in my portal. How do I go about that?
Ooh, that one I'm gonna have to research. Just as a point of information, we can look at the district office can look in the portal in read-only capacity to kind of see what's going on, but we don't have access like the processing center where we can actually go in real time to see why that button's not there. You have that person's contact information, or you say it's a question that comes
Yes,
a lot. So I'll try and get that answer for you and then get it to you, and then you can have it there for whomever asked that question.
that'd be great. Thank you.
I have another question. I wanted to ask if I've received an EIDL loan and would like to request an EIDL increase, what's the best way to apply and get approved?
You would request a modification, a loan modification to increase that loan. And then you would probably more than likely submit, I'm trying to think, because you've already submitted a lot of that information. If there's information that needs to be updated, the processing center will ask for that specific information. On the EIDL website, sba.gov/EIDL, EIDL, there is in the FAQs, it talks about specifically what you need to do to ask for a modification and an increase, depending on whether you're using the portal or not using the portal.
And
the
we have another
presentation is
question.
there.
If an EIDL application was rejected, can I reapply?
You can ask for a reconsideration of the decision. That needs to be done as outlined in the letters, decline letters, within 6 months of the date of that letter. If there is a second decline, then there is an appeals process. And in the second decline letter, it will outline what the appeal process is. I believe it's also outlined in the FAQs on the website. So you do have a couple of tries beyond the first application attempt.
I also have a question that says, can you please repeat the formula for the maximum loan amount that the SBA provides?
Okay, yeah, I know, probably going pretty quickly there. So assuming that, you were in operation in 2019, you would take your 2019 tax return, gross income, whatever line that is on the particular tax return that you're using. You would subtract from the gross receipts cost of goods sold. And once again, cost of goods sold are direct costs related to producing usually a product like a manufacturer or a value added type service where you're doing something to come up with something of greater value. In most cases, if you are a service business, that cost of goods sold should be zero. But anyhow, you would take your, you would subtract out cost of goods sold. That gives you your gross margin. And then you would take that amount, multiply it by 2 to represent 2 years.
Great.
And that would give you basically what the maximum is that you would be eligible for.
I also had a question in here about what loans or funding options are available via the SBA or any other resources for pre-revenue startups or very early revenue startups.
Would that be, I'm assuming that, are you talking about at this point as opposed to pre-pandemic, I'm assuming? Okay.
We get
Yes.
that question a lot.
Yeah, that would be kind of the regular SBA offerings that we have. Could be one of our loan guarantee programs like our 7A, number 7, letter A, guarantee loans up to $5 million with a guarantee anywhere from 50% to 90%, depending on the particular program under that authority. If you need, say, $50,000 or less, we have the microloan program, and that's done through our participating CDFIs, Community Development Financial Institutions, that can provide the capital in that range. They are CDFIs that participate with us may also participate in what they call the Community Advantage Program, which goes up to $250,000, and it is guaranteed by the SBA, just like the 7A program is for the commercial lenders.
Terry, we often get questions from business owners that are startups and they are seeking funding, but they don't have equity. Does the SBA have any programs to help businesses that are startups but don't have equity in place?
Yes and no. I think with the microloan program, if we're kind of starting from the smaller and working our way up, if you don't need a whole lot of capital, the CD at 5, not saying that they just throw money out indiscriminately, but because they're nonprofit, they're mission driven, they may have a little more flexibility in how they view that and how they even look at equity than a commercial lender. We don't have when we start dealing with the SBA backed loans where you go through a commercial lender, we don't have a specific amount in the SBA rules about you got to have X amount of equity. Because we are dealing with commercial lenders, a lot of time it's the market and the competitive environment in which those lenders are operating that kind of determines how much how low they're willing to go in terms of the equity contribution from the borrower. If they're willing to go zero, then they may be looking for other things to be even stronger, like cash flow. I mean, SBA lenders tend to be very, that's the primary source of repayment is the cash flow. So if you don't have the equity in, and their underwriting criteria allow that possibility, usually it's because they offset it with something else.
Sure. And the last question is, will the attendees be able to receive this recording? And yes, we will make it available within 48 hours. We will email it to you. That includes Terry's presentation as well as contact information for the SBA Georgia District Office and the Georgia MBDA Business Center Office. So we'd like to thank, I'm sorry.
Oh, I will just say, and the PowerPoint presentation is actually on the SBA website.
Yes.
That I just mentioned.
Thank you, Terry. So Terry, we would like to thank you tremendously for your time today and the valuable information that you have presented. Again, this webinar will be available within 48 to 72 hours. We'll send it out electronically to all of the attendees. We would especially like to thank the South Fulton Chamber of Commerce, the Georgia Minority Supplier Development Council, the Georgia Micro Enterprise Network, the Georgia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce for bringing a great group of businesses, MBEs, to the webinar to help us support by providing the technical assistance and access to capital that we know our MBEs need. Donna, would you like to close us out?
Well, thank you everybody again for attending this webinar today. Look for more programming from our Navigating Against the New Normal program that we've launched today. Terry, again, thank you so much for being a consistent, continuous supporter of us and our small businesses, our minority businesses. And again, thank you to all of our co-hosts. Have a great day.
Take care.
Bye, everyone.